Bibi may be undermining Trump's peace push by pressing ahead in Lebanon, even as Washington tries to keep the wider regional truce from collapsing. The IDF has warned residents of southern Lebanon not to return home, a sign that a new and more entrenched campaign may already be underway along the border belt. Hezbollah hideouts are clearly back on Israel's radar, and the latest moves may also reflect a tougher response after an Iran-backed attack killed an IDF reservist in southern Lebanon. The IDF is reportedly pressing ahead with a broad destruction plan in southern Lebanon, even as a ceasefire remains in effect. According to the Times of Israel, Israeli forces are moving to destroy buildings across southern Lebanese villages as part of that ongoing campaign. The report said several IDF commanders told Haaretz that the destruction plan is already being implemented on the ground. Civilian homes, public buildings, and schools are being systematically razed as part of the effort, according to the commanders cited in the report. The Israeli military is said to be continuing with the demolition plan despite the truce currently being in place between Israel and Lebanon. The stated objective is to clear the area, which Israel now considers part of the buffer zone it has created inside southern Lebanon. Israel has argued that Hezbollah used civilian infrastructure to store weapons or dig tunnels beneath homes in these villages. However, the report says the demolitions do not appear to distinguish between buildings allegedly used by Hezbollah and structures that were never touched by the group. The demolitions are reportedly being carried out by paid contractors, with some compensated according to the number of buildings they destroy. Commanders cited by Haaretz said the IDF is effectively replicating in Lebanon the demolition model it previously used in Gaza. An Israeli army spokesman warned residents not to return to villages in southern Lebanon, saying the military still considers those areas unsafe during the truce. The IDF continues to maintain positions in southern Lebanon during the ceasefire, according to spokesman Avichai Adrei, underscoring that Israel has not fully withdrawn from the area.
An urgent message to the residents of southern Lebanon. Please pay close attention during the period of the ceasefire agreement. The Israel Defense Forces continue to be stationed at their positions in southern Lebanon in the face of the ongoing terrorist activities of Hezbollah. Out of concern for your safety and the safety of your family members, and until further notice, you are requested not to move south of the line of the following villages and their surroundings: Mazrat Beit al-Sayad, Maidal Zun, Zibkin, Yeta, Sarafand, Hadatta, Beit Yahun, Shakra, Maidal Selm, Kabrika, Frown, Zata Ogabia, Yama al-Shakif, Anun, Der Mimas, Majun, Ebel el-Saki, Omri, Kfa Shoba, Ain Kenya, Ain Eta. It is also forbidden to approach the area of the Litani River, Wadi al-Salani, and the Saluki Valley. Additionally, you are requested not to cross into or return to the villages whose names are currently displayed on the screen. These can also be viewed on our official accounts.
This new destruction push comes just after the deadly April 18th incident in which an IDF reservist was killed in southern Lebanon, adding fresh tension to the ceasefire period. An IDF reservist was killed and 9 other Israeli soldiers were wounded in southern Lebanon on April 18th, marking another deadly incident along the tense northern front. One of the wounded Israeli soldiers was also left in serious condition, underscoring the severity of the blast and the danger facing troops operating in the area. According to the Times of Israel, citing the Israeli military, the soldiers were struck by an explosive device during operations in southern Lebanon. The slain soldier was identified as Sergeant First Class Leiter Porat, whose death added to Israel's growing list of battlefield losses in the Lebanon conflict. Porat, 31, was from Ashdod and served in the 769th Hiram Regional Brigade's 7106th Battalion, according to the report. The initial IDF probe said an engineering vehicle drove over a bomb that had allegedly been planted by Hezbollah in the area. The incident took place during operations inside IDF-controlled territory in southern Lebanon, where Israeli forces were continuing activity despite the ceasefire. Soldiers had reportedly been stationed there to secure heavy machinery operating on the ground, according to the Times of Israel. The wounded troops were airlifted to hospital for treatment, and the Israeli military said their families had already been notified. Notably, the incident occurred even as a ceasefire remained in place in Lebanon, highlighting the fragile and volatile nature of the truce. Following the blast, the Israeli military reportedly struck several targets in the surrounding area in response to the attack. The IDF is still probing further details surrounding the incident as it works to establish exactly how the bombing unfolded. With this latest casualty, Israel has now lost at least 14 soldiers since the start of the Lebanon war, according to cited military reporting. More than 650 IDF soldiers have also been wounded in varying degrees since the conflict began, according to Al Jazeera. The latest setback for Israel came despite a US-mediated ceasefire with Lebanon still being in place, underlining how fragile and contested the truce remains. After the truce was announced, Donald Trump claimed it was the 10th war he had ended, presenting the ceasefire as another major diplomatic victory. However, the ground situation in Lebanon appears anything but stable, with fresh violence and political disputes continuing to cast doubt on the durability of the ceasefire. In the latest sign of friction, Hezbollah leader Khiam dismissed the Lebanon ceasefire paper published by the United States, suggesting the deal remains far from fully accepted. Khiam also said the next phase of the truce would depend on the implementation of 5 key points, indicating that major conditions still need to be met before any real calm can hold. Khiam sought implementation of these 5 points, and I quote, 1. A permanent cessation of aggression throughout all of Lebanon, by air, land, and sea. 2. The withdrawal of the Israeli enemy from all occupied territories, extending right up to the borders. 3. The release of all prisoners. 4. The return of residents to their villages and towns situated along the borders. 5. Reconstruction efforts, supported by both international and Arab aid, and undertaken with a sense of national responsibility. Unquote. The 10-day ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel began on April 16 and is expected to run until around April 26, depending on the exact implementation timeline. Interestingly, Tehran's terms for a broader peace deal with the United States were linked to a ceasefire involving Israel and Lebanon, showing how tightly the regional tracks had become intertwined. However, just hours after the ceasefire was announced, Israeli officials made clear that the military campaign was not yet finished, signaling that the truce did not mean a full end to Israel's operations or objectives in Lebanon.
We are inside Lebanon in the midst of a war against Hezbollah with a freeze and a ceasefire for 10 days. The IDF holds and will continue to hold all the places it has cleared and occupied. The security zone has been cleared of terrorists and weapons and is empty of residents, and continue to be cleared of terrorist infrastructure, including the destruction of houses in Lebanese contact villages that have become full-fledged terrorist outposts. Alongside this, the security zone, from the security area up to the Litani line, which is currently under fire control by our forces, has not yet been cleared of terrorists and their weapons. This will have to be accomplished either through diplomatic means or by continuing the military operations of the IDF after the ceasefire. If the fire resumes, those residents who return to the security area will be required to evacuate to allow the completion of the mission. Also, the attack on Hezbollah's launch areas and power centers, beyond the Litani River and throughout Lebanon, which we started and planned to advance with great intensity, has now ceased before achieving its goals and will need to be renewed and carried out. At the request of my friend, President Trump, with whom we changed the Middle East and brought about tremendous achievements, we agreed to a temporary ceasefire in Lebanon. At his request, we will give an opportunity to promote an integrated political and military solution with the Lebanese government. And I remind you, for the first time in 43 years, representatives of the State of Israel are speaking directly with representatives of Lebanon. The road to peace is still long, but we have begun it. People ask me, what have we accomplished in the North? And my answer is, we have brought about monumental achievements. There were 2 threats emanating from Lebanon, a near threat and a distant threat. The near threat, the infiltration of thousands of terrorists into our territory and anti-tank fire toward our communities. The distant threat, which Hassan Nasrallah had built over years, the firing of 150,000 missiles and rockets intended to destroy Israel cities. We have removed both of these threats. For the first time, we created a deep security buffer zone along the entire northern border. Not just in Lebanon, along the entire Lebanese border up to Mount Hermon, through the Golan Heights, and down to the Yarmouk. They wanted to surround us with a ring of fire. We created a ring of security. This buffer zone completely removes the near threat of invasion and anti-tank fire. The IDF is stationed there, at the Yellow Line, to continue defending against the near threat. Regarding the distant threat, we have destroyed 90% of the missile and rocket stockpiles that Nasrallah built. We eliminated Nasrallah himself. We stunned them with the Pagas. We eliminated thousands of terrorists. The Hezbollah of today is a shadow of its former self compared to the boastful days of Nasrallah. But I say honestly, we have not yet finished the job. There are things we plan to do regarding the remaining rocket threat and the drone threat, which I will not detail here. However, we have an additional goal, and that is a dismantling of Hezbollah. Therefore, I tell you again in all honesty, this will not be achieved tomorrow. It requires sustained effort, patience, and endurance, and it requires wise navigation of the diplomatic field.